Mm-hmm. Tim, I'm remembering you mentioned earlier that if you could, anybody could find a video that shows a flat foot or that not a non-flat foot and a rupture of an ACL, you'd be very interested to see it. You've never seen that. Why wouldn't your focus, or why a focus on the trunk versus maybe a focus on something that without a doubt is associated with every non-contact injury, that being a flatter foot, the inside of the foot dropping to the ground?
Because there's more to it than just the foot. So the ground reaction force is important. There's no doubt, but you have to have that combination. So that valgus torque at the hip and knee is what creates this.
Mm-hmm.
Now that happens in combination with a high ground reaction force. So let's talk about how a torque is generated. So a torque is a force of a certain magnitude, a certain, like I was talking about, it takes, for example, in force, it takes 2,000 newtons of force to tear an ACL. But a torque has a force, but it is a vector. So it has also a three-dimensional direction. Well, a torque is a force, a three-dimensional vector, times the distance to the joint center. Okay, so this force coming from the ground and the magnitude of it is quite important, but also its position relative to the position of the joint center is what creates that torque. So the ground reaction force aspect is different, it is important. And I do think it's important to teach someone to roll the foot and not land flat-footed. And we've demonstrated that, and it does do that. But in combination, to drop that valgus torque that's actually loading that ACL and rupturing that ACL, you also have to increase that frontal plane control, that distance from that force to the hip and knee joint center. So what you're going to do is you got to decrease that ground reaction force, but you got to decrease this distance too, to actually make a difference in how that individual is loaded, how that individual's knee and ACL is loaded.
Mm-hmm. Hear the entire episode for free on iTunes, Spotify, other favorite podcast players, or go to mechanicalcareforum.com.